In this lesson, we're going to talk about cognitive restructuring, or more specifically, the ABCD model and thought stopping. Each week, when you listen to one of these videos, they're meant to be listened to once a week. I want you to record down your highest level on the anger meter and your anger awareness record, reporting all areas on the record and thinking about where you're at with your anger control plan. Have there been any developments on it? Did you practice your progressive muscle relaxation? And how did you solve problems this week or remove barriers that you encountered with the between session challenge? So the ABCD model, or the Rational Emotive model, is consistent with the way that we conceptualize anger management treatment. In this model, the A stands for an activating event, what we have been calling a red flag event. The B is the belief that people have about the activating event. And the model is based on the assumption that it's not the events themselves that produce the feelings like anger, but our interpretations or our beliefs about the events. And then the C is going to stand for the emotional consequence of the events. In other words, these are going to be the feelings that people experience as a result of their interpretations of and their beliefs concerning the event. So according to the cognitive behavioral theorists, as people become angry, they're going to engage in an internal dialogue. We call this internal dialogue our self-talk. So for example, suppose you're waiting for a bus to come and it approaches. Several people push in front of you to get on board. And in this situation, you might start to get angry, and you may be thinking, how can people be so inconsiderate? They just pushed me aside to get on the bus. They obviously don't care about me or other people. So examples of the maladaptive self-talk that can produce anger escalation are reflected in statements like, people should always be more considerate of my feelings, or how dare they be so inconsiderate and disrespectful, and they obviously don't care about anyone but themselves. Maladaptive, if we think about the word and break it down, mal in Spanish means bad and adapt means to change, which means that our thoughts or our self-talk has changed for the worse. People don't have to get angry when they encounter such an event. The event itself does not get them upset and angry. Rather, it's our interpretation of and our beliefs about the situation that are causing the anger. Beliefs that are underlying anger often take the form of should or must. So when we hear should or must, or if we can insert should or must in our thought process, it's probably a maladaptive thought process. And most of us can agree, for example, that respecting others is an admirable quality. Our belief might be people should always respect others. But in reality, people often don't respect each other in everyday encounters. So there's that should word. People should always respect others. So you can choose to view the situation more realistically as just an unfortunate defect of human beings, or you can let your anger escalate every time you witness or you're the recipient of another person's disrespect. Unfortunately, your perceived disrespect can keep you angry and push you towards the explosion phase. And then ironically, it may even lead you to show disrespect to others, which would violate your own fundamental belief about how people should be treated. So the ABCD approach consists of identifying these maladaptive beliefs and then disputing them with more rational or realistic perspectives. So in this model, the D is going to stand for dispute. You might get angry, for example, when you start thinking, I must always be in control. I must control every situation. Well, it's not possible or appropriate to control every situation. But rather than continue with these beliefs, you can try to dispute them. You might want to tell yourself, I have no power over things I can't control. or I have to accept what I cannot change. And these are examples of ways to dispute the beliefs that you may have already encountered in maybe like a 12-step program like AA or NA, Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. People have many other maladaptive beliefs that can lead to anger. So, for example, maybe your friend disagrees with you. You might start to think, I'm always very nice to him and he should trust me, trust my opinion, he should like me. And if you hold this belief, you're likely to get upset and angry when you perceive rejection. But if you dispute this maladaptive belief by saying, people won't always agree with me and some people will disagree with me, you're most likely to stay calm and be able to control your anger more easily. Another common maladaptive belief is, I must be respected and treated fairly by everybody. This is likely going to lead you to frustration and anger. People are sometimes going to be rude to you, and they're sometimes going to treat you unfairly, and it's unavoidable. And perhaps these people are rude and inconsiderate to everybody. Perhaps they're normally kind, but they are having maybe a stressful day, and that's unfortunate. But from an anger management perspective, it's better to accept the unfairness and lack of interpersonal connectedness that can happen in our day-to-day interactions. So to dispute this belief, it's going to be helpful to tell yourself, I can't expect to be treated fairly by everybody. And other beliefs that may lead to anger are going to include everybody should follow the rules, or life should be fair, or good should prevail over evil, or people should always do the right thing. And these are beliefs that are not always followed by everybody in society. And usually there's very little you can do to change that. So you might want to think about how you might dispute these beliefs. In other words, what thoughts that are more adaptive and less apt to lead to anger can be substituted for these beliefs. And for people with anger control problems, these maladaptive beliefs can lead to the explosion phase, which is a 10 on the anger meter, and to the negative consequences of the aftermath phase. And it's often better to change your outlook by disputing your beliefs and creating an internal dialogue or self-talk that is more rational and adaptive. So this is the ABCD model. You have the activating event, something happens, somebody cuts you off in traffic, and then I'll skip the B for a second and we'll go to the C. The C is I might flip them off or honk a horn or yell some expletive out the window. That's the consequence. So I have to check my belief about what happened because of the consequence. So if I'm yelling and I'm angry and I'm flipping them off and I'm maybe driving erratically now, my belief in that situation might have been, you should not cut me off. You should allow me to go in front of you. And so I need to dispute that irrational belief, that should statement, and turn it into something a little bit more realistic. So, you know what? That person may be in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry. I don't own the road. And then there's another part to this, which is the E, which is the effect of disputing that irrational belief. And so the E, the effect that I'm going to have is I'm going to calm down. I'm not going to drive irrationally or erratically and yell and flip them off and honk my horn. I'm not going to do any of that because I've disputed that irrational belief of you should not cut me off. Another approach to controlling anger is called thought stopping, and it provides an immediate and direct alternative to the ABCD model. In this approach, you're simply going to tell yourself through a series of self-commands to stop thinking about the thoughts that are getting you angry. So, for example, you might tell yourself, I need to stop thinking these thoughts. I'm only going to get in trouble if I keep thinking this way, or don't buy into this situation, or don't go there. So, in other words, instead of trying to dispute your thoughts and beliefs, as I just outlined in the ABCD model, the goal is to stop your current pattern of angry thoughts before they lead to an escalation of anger. And you kind of just, it's kind of like a train. Our brains are the busiest train station in the world, and sometimes we can just jump on one of those trains and ride it to the end of the track, it becomes a runaway train. And that's kind of what happens with our thoughts. And so we need to learn how to pull the brakes on that thought and say, you know what, I'm not going down this road. So this week, you're going to monitor and record your highest level of anger on the anger meter. Use the anger awareness record to identify the event that led to your anger and those cues that are associated with that anger-provoking event. What were the outcomes or the consequences? And what strategies did you use to manage your anger in response to that event? You're going to review the ABCD model and record at least 2 maladaptive beliefs and how you would dispute these beliefs. It could be anything that you have, any maladaptive thoughts you have this week, or maladaptive statements that you see in other or hear from other people. In addition, you're going to use the thought stopping technique, preferably once a day during the coming week, and continue to develop your anger control plan. You now have 2 different skills and techniques that you can add to your anger control plan, and that is going to be the ABCD model and thought stopping.